Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Dani, and today I'm gonna tell you all the stats of my reading for 2020. So I have a very big spreadsheet on Google Drive with all the books that I'm reading as I'm reading them. I fill it out. I have another tab that's called Bookshelf, which is all the books that I have on my bookshelf. I have all the charts. I have one tab for digital books that I purchase. I have just a lot of stats, and I just have a lot of fun with it. I considered a few times sharing my spreadsheet with you so you can use it as well, but honestly right now it is a very obvious mix of G's book from Book Rose Compile spreadsheet and Ali from Hardback Hoarder. Both of them have awesome spreadsheets that I incorporated a lot. I had a very simple one when I first started doing this because I didn't know the other people had shared theirs, and now I just have a mix of both of them. And if I ever do something that is really my own and very original, I'll definitely share with you so you can use it as well. But otherwise, I would definitely just recommend that you check G's and Ali's spreadsheets. So let's start with my Goodreads wrap-up. That page that they have like my year in books. You know what I'm talking about? So according to Goodreads, I read 30,002 pages in 2020, and according to my spreadsheet, I read 29,910. That was a hard number to say. 29,910, which is a little bit different, but not by much. Sometimes Goodreads doesn't have the exact number of pages, or maybe it considers pages of like appendices that I haven't read or something like that. Maybe that's why it's a little bit different, but it's close enough. And I read a total of 90 books. The shortest book I read in the year was Randomized by Andy Weir, which is a short story, part of the Amazon Forward collection. I have a whole video talking about that collection, and I really recommend it if you like sci-fi. And that has 28 pages. The longest book I read was The Wall of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, which is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. I gave 5 stars. Randomized, I gave 2 stars. So should I be reading more bigger books? I don't know if that means anything, but it's a fun fact. Either way, Wall of Ascension has 781 pages. For 2021, I have already started The Way of Kings, so we are going to beat that 781 for sure. The average book length of books that I read in 2020 was 333 pages, which sounds about right. I read a few very large books, and I read quite a few short stories or manga, graphic novel, things that are very short, but 333 sounds about right for an average of the books that I read. The most popular book that I read in 2020 was 1984 by George Orwell, which again makes a lot of sense. It is a huge classic, modern classic, and I totally see why it is the most popular book that I read. And the least popular book that I read was Endgame by Aisha Trital, which is again a short story that was sent to me by the author, and I had a lot of fun with it. I really recommend you check that out as well. It was only shelved by 37 people, so definitely go check this book out. My average rating for 2020 was 4 stars, which is pretty good. I would say I give most of the books that I like, I give it 4 stars, unless it's amazing, then it gets 5 stars. If it's not as good, it's 3, but I read a lot of really good books. According to my spreadsheet, which is now for sure more accurate because I give half stars, I give quarter stars even, the average was 3.96, which is very close still to Goodreads. And I did that because we all complain a lot about Goodreads not having half stars, and I still don't get it. I did ask once why they don't have half stars, and they said that they had a study, they did a like user research about getting half stars, and people didn't really want it. But from what I saw, it was a study from over 10 years ago, and I'm sure it's not accurate anymore for how people are using Goodreads nowadays. I really do think it should have half stars, which I'm going on a tangent here for a whole different discussion. But I got my average for my own rating on my spreadsheet, which has half stars, quarter stars, and all that. and I have my average from Goodreads, and they're pretty much the same. So I don't know. It still, the average doesn't mean anything for anyone else besides me. So I still think it's more important that I give each book the accurate rating that I think it deserves, rather than having an average in the end that is the same if we didn't have half stars. So I'm still all for the half stars on Goodreads. I think that would improve a lot how we can review books on Goodreads and recommend it in the best way possible. But still, it's very interesting for me that the average was pretty much the same. The highest rated book on Goodreads that I read in 2020 was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 4, which is very specific, and I have no idea why that's the case. It has 4.73 rating on Goodreads, which is very high. I don't remember specifically this book being more impactful, better, funnier, or anything than the rest of the series, because I've given 5 stars to all of them, pretty much. So I don't know why specifically book 4 has the highest rating. And then we have all the rest of the list of books that I read. But let's go to my spreadsheet now. So like I said, according to my spreadsheet, I read 29,910 pages in the year, which means about 81 pages a day and 2,492.5 pages a month. 81 pages a day doesn't sound right to me. I don't read that many. There are weekends that I can read like 2 books, but usually I rarely get past 50 pages a day. So I guess those weekends that I read more, especially all the Fullmetal, all the manga that I read, I think that inflated the pages per day a lot. So I don't think the number means a lot in the sense of novels, because I do think that the manga made that number much higher than it actually is. 90 books for the year means 7.5 books a month, which seems about right. Again, counting manga, counting graphic novels, counting short stories, it is about what I read in the year. If you watch my m&ms CBR, which I just filmed and is going to be uploaded after this video, so be sure to check that out. But if you watch that, you know that I pick 5 books a month to read, and usually I get all the 5 books that I pick, which would mean 60 books in the end of the year, and then we inflate that with all the manga and graphic novel and short stories, and then 90 books make sense. That being said, if you look at how many books I read per month, it looks like a roller coaster. In January, I read 3 books, which makes sense because I was moving to this apartment and didn't have as much time to read. February, I read 5 books, which is almost my average. It's my m&ms average. In March, I read 6. In April, I read 10 books, which probably means a lot of manga. If I look at it, actually, now that I'm looking at it, April was actually a really good reading month. Well, I read a lot of books and around 300, from 300 to 400 pages, so that's why I was able to read more, I guess. They're almost all of them in the lower 300s, but there was just one novella, and all the others were actually big books. So that was a good month. April was really a good month. May was when I started Fullmetals, so it looks like I read more books every month, but I was reading Fullmetal. In September, I read 12 books, which is when I read the Amazon Forward collection, which has 6 short stories. So I actually read 6 books and 6 short stories. And from those 6 books, probably Fullmetal was there as well. Actually, no, I should check which books I read before I say something. But in September, I didn't read any manga, but I read some other, a little bit shorter books with all the Amazon Forward collection. And yeah, November, I read 3 books, which makes a lot of sense because if you've been here following me since November, you know that it was a very hard month for me. There was a lot that happened in that month that I had to focus on, and I just couldn't focus on the books. I had to travel, and with COVID was not fun. And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense that I read only 3 books in November. And then December I read 6, which was me catching up with things that I wanted to get to until before the year was over. So if we compare how many books I read per month and how many pages I read per month, you can see that September was not a great month. I read 12 books, but it was in the middle, like the average, it was the average of the pages that I read per month because of the short stories. So when I say that I read 12 books, don't think that I read 12 full-length novels, because I cannot do that. I don't have time for that. I work full-time. November was a month that I read the least amount of pages. Again, makes a lot of sense. And June was a month that I read more pages. And I also read 12 books. But when you look at it, in June I read 3 Full Metal, I read Dragon Ball, I read Witchy, which is a graphic novel, I read The Prince and the Dressmaker, which is another graphic novel. So they have more pages, but not necessarily it takes me a longer time to get through them. So it makes sense that it has more pages, but I think my average really cannot be that high every month. Then let's look at genres. What I read the most was fantasy. This is what I primarily read. I read 40 fantasies out of the 90 books that I read. It's a lot. 44% of my reading was fantasy. And I only read 21 sci-fi. Of those, 6 being the Amazon Horror Collection. And I definitely want to change that in 2021. I really love sci-fi and I want to read more of that. I read 15 mystery thriller or horrors, and then a little bit of the other stuff, 5% contemporary, 2% romance, which is the two romance books that I read that I gave 2 stars to. If you watch my worst books of the year, you know that it's not because it was a romance. I had specific issues with those books, and I still want to try other romances in the future. Then I read 4 nonfiction, which is good. We should try to get that better in the future. I really like sciencey nonfiction, so I'll definitely try to fit more of those in my reading. And 2 historical fiction, which I don't even know what they were. Maybe the Reese Witherspoon books. Daisy Jones and the Six, I think I caught it as historical fiction. I reread that in 2020, so that could be it. For audience, I read 54 adult books, which is 60% of my reading. I think that's really good. I started to get a little bit tired of all the YA tropes that we've been seeing a lot in fantasy right now, or at least that I've been noticing too much right now, and it makes sense that I read only 30 YAs. I still do love YA, but I'm going to be more picky about which YA books I read in the future. And I read 6 middle grades, and I think I can read more middle grades in the future. I really have a lot of fun with middle grades, and I will try to make that more of a priority. For my stats about the 2021 year, I am improving this a lot so I'm able to see, like, okay, I read 60% adult books, and what was my average rating for adult books? What was my average rating for the middle grades? I'm going to have more stats and more like cross-referencing the ratings and the other things, the genres and all that, with like everything. It's going to look really cool. I'm already started to organize my spreadsheet for that, again, using as a base Ali's spreadsheet, and I'm excited for it. I couldn't do that for 2020, but keep an eye for that in 1 year. We'll have a lot more stats. For page length, I read mostly, well, we know that my average was 333, and it makes sense that I read more books in the range of 300 to 400 pages. I read 20 books from 200 and 300 pages, and 18 books from 400 and 500 pages, and not a lot of larger books. I read 10 books that were over 500 pages, which is not a lot. I do love big fantasies, and they usually intimidate me a little bit because of how big they are, but that's the thing that I want to do. Like, do I give higher rating to larger books? I want to have that statistic for 2021. 67% of my reading was female authors, 31% was male authors, and 1% was both, which is co-written by a male and female author. And I'm really happy that my ratio for female authors is like that. Like, I read much more by female authors than male authors. That's that makes me happy. Most of the books that I read were from American authors, a few Canadian, a few British also, and 13% was Japanese authors, which is the manga. Actually, it was more than 36% because I wrote United States wrong for about 8 books. I don't know how that happened, but it's much more United States. I'm going to fix that for the image that you're seeing here, so you're going to see the correct number of percentage of countries. But yeah, I want to read more about from other places, but I am really happy that I have a lot of other colors in this graph, which means that I'm reading from a diverse amount of places. Like even if I pick one book from a different place, I'm picking one book from a lot of different places. So that's cool, but I definitely want to read more from other places as well and see what else is out there, because there's way too many United States in this graph. I read 86 books in English and 4 books in Portuguese. I don't mind that. I of course will read Brazilian books in Portuguese, but I don't want to read books that were originally written in English. I don't want to read them in Portuguese, so it makes sense that I read more books in English. It makes sense that I can only purchase books in English here, so I'm not upset about this, but I do have a lot of Brazilian books here still that I have to get to, so Brazilian books by Brazilian authors, so definitely something that it might change in the future because I will read by Brazilian authors. And then for format, I read 47 books in hardcover, 29 in paperback, so all of that are the physical books that I read. I read 10 ebooks, which is a 6 Amazon forward collection. The Prince and the Dressmaker, I read it from the library in ebook. I don't remember what were the other 3, but probably books that I got from the library as well. Maybe, well, there's 1 arc at least that I read from NetGalley. And yeah, so that's where my ebooks come from. I don't buy ebooks so much. The ones that I read are from the library. And 4 audiobooks, which again makes a lot of sense because of the pandemic. I've been working from home, so I don't have the commute time to listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I just don't listen to as many at home, so I only listen to 4. And that's it for the ratings that I have for my reading for 2020. Like I said, next year I hope I will have a lot more and a lot more things to get from this ratings, from this stats. But either way, I love looking at all these graphs in the end of the year and seeing how the year went. So I hope you had fun with it as well. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye.